11.2. 910, Big 550, KTRS, McGraw Show. Also on KPLR 11.2. Also streaming for those who like to stream. Maybe AT&T would like to buy our content for $85 billion, but we'll get to some of that a little bit later on. Also 11.2, KPLR 11.2, which is channel 187 on your charter system. Now, in terms of full disclosure, I used to live in the Shaw neighborhood, and my next guest used to stalk me quite a bit, would look inside my car windows to see how much chocolate milk I had purchased from the Quick Trip on the way to work. He's been a frequent caller on the show and quite often a frequent annoyance from time to time. But I got a phone call from him saying there's something going on in the
Southwest Garden neighborhood.
Southwest Garden neighborhood, my old stomping grounds. And would I be willing to have him come on the show and talk about it? So we said, sure. Michael Cohen, otherwise known as Mickey from South City. You're on the Big 550 KTRS. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you doing, McGraw?
All right, good. We are talking about the corner of Southwest and Kings Highway at the legendary corner where the Southwest Bank used to be. Right?
Correct.
It is a legendary corner for a number of reasons. That is a historic building. That is also the site of the great St. Louis bank robbery and the movie starring Steve McQueen.
Steve McQueen's first starring role.
It is a very historic movie and actually a great movie to see St. Louis and what it was like in the early 50s.
Absolutely.
That building is now no longer Southwest Bank. It is now BMO Harris. And all along Kings Highway for the next block, which is an elongated block, sits more offices of BMO Bank and then a couple of historic buildings, a couple of historic homes right along there. And you're telling me that they want to tear down those historic buildings and install what?
Essentially what they want to do is tear down 80% of the buildings, rebuild the facades, have a parking lot behind one of the historic buildings where it sits, build a full-blown commercial Walgreens behind the other historic building, tear down a building that the Department of Natural Resources says shouldn't be torn down, and then give the last building to a community organization. And they want to do this in a residential neighborhood.
And they want to build what? A Walgreens?
A Walgreens.
Okay. Now, so everyone understands this area. It's Southwest and Kings Highway, just at the entrance to the hill, more or less, right? Right there.
Well, it's the entrance to Southwest Garden, but the hill, where the BP station is, where you used to buy chocolate milk in USA Today, that is the hill over there.
Right.
And but for all intents and purposes, the bank does identify itself with the hill as well as Southwest Garden.
Sure, right. But just to sort of give a sense of where it is. Now, there is a current Walgreens right across the street from BMO Harris Bank.
On Southwest.
And then on Kings Highway, 5 blocks away, on Arsenal, there's another Walgreens.
At the corner of Arsenal and Kings Highway.
On the other side of the park, which is within walking distance.
Right.
And so this proposal went to the Preservation Board.
Correct.
How long ago?
August 22nd.
And the Preservation Board is what? What do they do in the city?
Well, they are the ones of the overseers of the historical districts in the city. Mm-hmm. So if someone wants to do something within a historical district, then they have to go through the Cultural Preservation Board, and they review the plans, and then they have a board meeting. You present to the board meeting, and they vote up or down.
So back in August, this plan to tear down these historic buildings right there on Kings Highway went to the Preservation Board. And how did the board rule back in August?
They ruled 4-1 against the demolition of the buildings.
So the Preservation Board in the city ruled these buildings are so important, we need to maintain these buildings. And since Walgreens is all over the place, we don't necessarily need another Walgreens there to ruin these buildings.
Well, as you saw on the map, McGraw, we have 4 pharmacies all within 5 blocks of each other.
Okay.
I mean, it's just...
Well, you also have a Walgreens within 1 block of each other.
Right.
Right. Okay. All right, so what's the deal? If the Preservation Board turned it down back in August, what's the stink here?
Well, these are called preliminary hearings, and unfortunately, you can keep coming at them. You can rearrange your bricks. You can make the plan a little bit different. In this case, their plan being different, they're going to maintain the facades of the buildings. Although any governing body of historic districts will tell you once you tear down 80% of a historic building, it is no longer historic. End of story.
Right. Well, and you can't tear down an historic building and put a parking lot and say you're maintaining the facade of the building.
Absolutely. They have to show extraordinary per the ordinance.
I mean, I'm good at architecture stuff, but if you tear down a building and build a parking lot, I'm not so sure you can maintain the historic integrity of the building.
So to put it in really graphic relief, the homes that border the southern exposure on Botanical, it's a residential neighborhood. The homes across the street on land that Henry Shaw once owned and deeded off plots of land as he brought people to town, those homes in and of them, my home is 100 years old.
Now, we should say, in terms of full disclosure, you live right across the street from this.
I live 90 feet away, so put it in terms that everybody can understand, the length of a basketball court.
And so why are you so opposed to this?
Well, I'm opposed to it because you're going to take, a zoning that is two-family and neighborhood commercial and turn it into full-blown commercial, and they want to put this Walgreens with the big red sign up on the wall on Kings Highway, and they're going to change the fabric of the neighborhood. Andrew Weil, who is the head of landmarks in St. Louis, appeared at the last meeting and said, once you tear away the edges of a historic district, it's like unraveling a sweater. It never stops. And there's a man that certainly knows what he's talking about. In fact, he spoke against this project at the last board hearing.
So also the Walgreens behind the BP station, they want to close that one and move it to Kings Highway.
Well, that's the conundrum, and the people on the Hill, because that is within their purview, should be worried because once that moves out, Walgreens does not own the property. So what do you get next? Do you get the check cashing store? Do you get, you name it.
Right.
Anything's possible because that is a industrial designation there, and anything can go in there.
Right. All right. So the Preservation Board, so these people who are doing the development, they can just go in and do this again. So you're not worried if it failed. If it failed back in August, why should you think it will pass now?
Well, we think that we know that the mayor's office is in favor of this project and has been weighing in on this, and they have done this with absolutely zero input from the neighborhood. They have never come to us. They have never sent representatives to see us, although we have asked. They have met, though, with the developers and with the bank. In fact, we were told, and I'm quoting, my alderman said, they went right over my head straight to the mayor's office. I don't know how much impact I'm going to be able to have.
You're talking about Steve Conway.
Yes.
Now, where does Steve Conway sit on this project?
Steve sent out an email today to Preservation saying he is opposed to the present plan, and they will not enjoy his support at today's meeting.
I thought you really need the support of the alderman to get anything done in any of these wards.
Well, they are really pushing this. We don't know why they're pushing it. Frankly, I haven't looked at campaign finance reports or anything like that, McGraw. I'll dig into that once we get this fish fried. But I do want to say one thing about the developer on this. Draper and Kramer out of Chicago, and they are also doing the development on the Hill, that giant residential development in the old dilapidated warehouse buildings that are right along Kings Highway there.
Okay.
They do not, and have not, as of Friday, close of business, have a license to do business in the city of St. Louis. It has been pointed out, yet they just continue to trumble on like, well, what you say doesn't matter.
What do you mean? What do you mean they don't have a business license in the city of St. Louis?
For instance, if this office was in the city of St. Louis,
yes,
you would have to have a business license.
Yes.
Pure and simple. You do any business in the city of St. Louis, even if you're transient, coming from Chicago down here to do business. And they've been working on this project since 2013. The first the neighborhood ever found about it was in May of 2016, 3 years later. And checking with the license collector's office, they do not have a business license, and they were able to backtrack to the earnings tax. Their representatives are actually paying earnings tax for the time they spend down here, but they do not have a business license. If I tried to do that, being the little guy that I am,
yes,
they'd be all over me.
All right, Mickey Cohen here. Explain to me the difference between the proposal that failed in August and the proposal that's going to go towards the Preservation Board tonight.
Well, suddenly in 2 months' time, in the original workup that preservation did, and they do a workup going into the meeting where they either recommend to the board that they accept the proposal or they recommend that they don't accept the proposal.
Right.
Back in June, when they were originally on the agenda, they recommended not to approve it.
Okay.
Well, they withdrew their proposal at that time, put in another one which was eerily similar. And that time they recommended the proposal.
So this virtually the same plan. Now they've endorsed it as opposed to the last time they didn't endorse it.
In June they did not endorse it. They pulled it. In August they endorsed it. We went to hearing. They lost. Now we're in October. Before the neighborhood organization was for it, now they're against it. Before the alderman was for it, now he's against it. And now the preservation board, the differences that we have seen, because they do a workup, the buildings were rated sound back in October.
You're talking about
back in August.
You're talking about the buildings they want to tear down.
Correct.
Were considered sound buildings.
Right. Now
Okay.
they're considered fair. In 2 months' time, they're now in only fair condition.
So the preservation board has changed the status of the buildings they want to tear down.
Correct.
From fair, they were fine buildings.
They were sound.
They were sound buildings. Now they're fair. Fair. Okay. All right. So, Mickey, what do you want people to do?
I want them to contact the St. Louis Preservation. They can email St. Louis Preservation. And I'm going to fumble around here and get the email address out for you. And hopefully we'll convince you to put a link to this.
Yes.
But, you know,
I already got you on the show. What more do you want from me?
Yeah. Back in May, Southwest Garden was against this, and they did a petition, online petition, and they got 12,000 signatures opposing this development.
So you're saying the mayor's office is for it.
Yes.
The alderman in the area, Conway, is against it.
Yes.
The neighborhood's against it.
Yes. And you got a developer working
Without a business license.
which is frankly against city ordinances.
The preservation board is made up of who? Who's on the preservation board?
It's made up of appointees by the mayor's office. The chairman of the board is Richard Callow. And
Richard Callow, the PR guy.
Yeah, he works in the treasurer's office currently, and then he's been appointed to head up this board. And it's really, everyday people that have worked within city government, that are worked in city, doing what I do, city
Right.
activism, things
Yeah.
like that. And they do have some, one's an architect, one's in real estate.
Okay.
Well, yeah, they link up.
Last question for you,
Yes,
Mick,
sir.
and here is this, while you're still fumbling for the email here. I know you live in the neighborhood, but you know what? Walgreens has every right to build a building, and Walgreens has a right to open up a pharmacy, and people in the other neighborhood have a right to go get their drugs and their aspirins and their cigarettes and whatever else. Why isn't this just a classic case of not in my backyard? Why should you be so special as to not have a Walgreens near your house?
Okay, so here's the deal. I do have a Walgreens near my house. It is 5 blocks down the street, okay? It is 5 blocks of Schnucks, et cetera, et cetera. That's one. Two, this is a historic registered district. It is the Reber Place Historic District that is registered by the U.S. government. There are rules that govern this, okay? By the way, the group that I represent and the people that we talk to, including Southwest Garden, including the alderman, none of us are anti-development. And I'm going to quote one of the board members at the last meeting. We simply can do better here. And we're not going to take the project that the only thing we all agree on this project, it maximizes the dollars that BMO Harris will make by selling their land. That's one. Two, the problem with this is it changes the streetscape forever. And when Walgreens is done there, what do we get next? What happens to that corner of the neighborhood, which right now is very tranquil? And at night, I got to tell you, at 8 o'clock at night, you think I'm lying to you? Kings Highway is a very quiet street. Sure, cars are coming by. Sure, the ambulance goes by. But when we bought our homes on Botanical, on Columbia, on Tower Grove Place, that was a bank that closed at 5 or 6 o'clock every day, closed at noon on Saturday. And I've been told by people that do this, people that work at some of our local, what do you call them, strip mall developers and that.
Right.
That site is ideal site for Walgreens to go 24 hours. Something we are not in favor of. And I want to point out one thing. One of the things that people object to the most, when you look at your map, you see a curb cut coming out of there onto Kings Highway.
Yeah.
That curb cut is two-way. What that will do is make it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-way unregulated intersection just south of a major intersection, which, by the way, Southwest Kings Highway Vanderbilt is the second busiest intersection in the city of St. Louis.
Not to mention there's a Walgreens across street from BMO on Southwest, and there's a Walgreens on Arsenal, which is 5 blocks away.
Yes.
All right.
Can I say one more thing?
Sure, why not? It's your
The
show.
people that have worked on this, and 2 of them being teachers, they are doing a civics lesson right now. They're listening in their classroom.
Oh.
They got their students listening.
All right.
And I would like to give a shout out to Amy Long and Amy Beeson and their students at St. Roch's and in the Clayton schools. I just want to tell you what, if someone says it's so, doesn't mean it has to be.
And you can fight
Unless
City
it's-
Hall.
And you can fight City Hall. And I think that's the climate that's prevailing now in the country today.
All right, well, teach these kids civic lessons. Do you have that email people can find out
No,
more
I
about?
don't have that email.
All right, kids, don't do what Mickey does. Have the email handy and ready to go. That is embarrassing. Do we know what time the Preservation Board is meeting today?
It meets at 4 o'clock, 1520 Market Street. And I want to give them credit for one thing. When you get up to speak, you speak. They never cut you off. They let you say everything you got to say.
Unlike me, I'm going to cut you off.
Yes.
Can someone? Do you have an email? People can email you to find out more. Is there a web page? Is there a Facebook page? Anything?
Yeah, it's the Facebook page or Nextdoor. Nextdoor is the neighborhood group where everybody goes on.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's been a lot said on Nextdoor. And what I can tell you is simply this. If you want to write to Dan Krasnoff, Krasnoff, he is the director at Cultural and does these workups. And his email address is Krasnoff, D, Krasnoff, D as in dog, at St. Louis
All right.
Mo.
How about we do this?
Okay.
How about you go to ktrs.com and you send me an email? Okay.
You're the man.
Then I will pass along that email to you.
Okay.
Okay. Because
Thank you.
people are going to get into 6 different accidents
Absolutely.
trying to write down that email.
Okay.
KTRS.com. Send me the email or send the station the email. I'll get it, and then I'll send it on to you. But it's tonight, preservation meeting, and you'll keep us informed on what happens tonight.
Yes, sir, I will.
All right. And finally, for the kids listening in the classes, where does the winning never stop?
KTRS.
It's 9:27. Mick, thanks for coming in. Thanks for bringing it to our
welcome.
attention. And you need to teach those kids that you can fight City Hall.
Absolutely.
9:27 here, Big 550 KTRS. Let me tell you.